Hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for tuning in to News 9 Live. I'm Kabir Naqvi. You're watching this special broadcast of top global stories from our studios here in the National Capital Region. Like always, we have an expansive list of stories for you to cover. Trump versus Biden, what it is that you need to know about ahead of that crucial debate. And that's not the only election that we're going to be focusing on. UK election, snap polls in France, we're going to talking about that. Climate change is certainly real. We do not let it go here on News 9 Live. We're going to talk about special carbon dioxide taxation on farms in Denmark. Julian Assange might be walking as a free man. But first and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, we have to shift our focus to what's happening in Israel, because from seminary to military, that's the name of our segment. Today, the top court in Israel has ordered, through its ruling, the government to now conscript in the military the Haredi Jews. These are the ultra-Orthodox Jews. People are calling it another blow to Netanyahu. Take a look at this. Israel's Supreme Court has today ordered the government to draft ultra-Orthodox Jews into the military, delivering a major blow to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that has the potential to unravel his ruling coalition. The court also ordered the government to withdraw funding from any religious schools or yeshivas whose students do not comply with draft notices. Quote unquote, the government wanted to distinguish at the level of law enforcement between individuals based on their group affiliation. This is what the court said in its ruling. It went on to say it was determined that by doing so, the government seriously harmed the rule of law and the principle according to which all individuals are equal before the law. Now, ultra-Orthodox or Haredi Jews have, for all intents and purposes, been exempt from national mandatory military service since Israel's founding. Ultra-Orthodox men spend much of their early lives out of the workforce, entirely devoted to religious study. They view yeshivas as fundamental to the preservation of Judaism, as important to Israel's defense and the military. Haredi parties have been staunchly opposed to efforts to get young ultra-Orthodox men to serve in the military. Netanyahu's fragile government coalition relies on two Haredi parties, United Torah Judaism and Shas, to govern. He has, for weeks, been trying to advance legislation through Israel's parliament, the Knesset, that would enshrine in law a draft exemption for Haredi men. Now, why is this decision crucial? Here's why the decision comes at a critical time. The ruling has come forth when the country is already at a war for nearly 9 months now, and a prime minister whose far-right government lost its veneer of wartime solidarity earlier this month when Benny Gantz, an opposition leader, left Netanyahu's war cabinet. And although Israel's military chiefs publicly decry manpower shortfalls, this ruling is unlikely to result in large numbers of ultra-Orthodox or Haredi Jewish men joining the ranks anytime soon. Netanyahu's coalition depends on two ultra-Orthodox parties to stay in power. These parties view conscription exemptions as crucial as they allow their followers to stay in religious seminaries, avoiding a diverse military that might challenge their conservative traditions. Now, the ultra-Orthodox conscription waiver has become especially charged as Israel's armed forces, made up mostly of teenage conscripts and older civilians mobilized for reserve duty, are overstretched by a multi-front war. We're taking a look at what's happening in Gaza. Netanyahu has very recently said that the shift of focus might now be towards Lebanon. And the court's unanimous ruling stated that at the height of a difficult war, the burden of inequality is more than ever acute. Most Israelis are bound by law to serve in the military, whereas ultra-Orthodox Jewish seminary students have been largely exempt for decades. We'll talk about more about this. Listen in to a reaction that's coming in from a major stakeholder in the meantime.
This ruling actually doesn't have any implications, any practical implications. It's more of a declaration more than anything else. It doesn't add anything to the defense issue at this time. So it's very hard to give any credit to this ruling. It doesn't mean much. In fact, the High Court shouldn't have interfered at all in this issue.
So Netanyahu's coalition member over there saying that this hasn't got much to do with the military problems. The pragmatic ones that many are saying are actually going about on the ground. Now, here's why most Israelis want the ultra-Orthodox to serve. Now, there's a Supreme Court ruling that has come out. Supreme Court ruled that IDF must draft Haredi men. Ultra-Orthodox leaders seek legislation for a legal exemption in the meantime. Of course, equality and fairness needs to be talked about. Eliad Shraga of the Movement for Quality Government called for ruling an end to 76 years of inequality. He criticized the situation where some risk their lives for the state while others do nothing Political implications have come about. Netanyahu's Likud party insists legislation, not a court ruling, is the solution. Shah's party leader, Aryeh Deri, emphasized the importance of Torah study alongside military service. United Torah Judaism's Moshe Roth, who we just heard, downplayed the ruling, saying little will change practically. There is, of course, military preparedness that many are talking about. Military leaders state openly that they are not ready to draft Haredi men en masse. Ultra-Orthodox men often serve in special units due to religious requirements. There are practical implications, ladies and gentlemen. There's the government tensions that we're going to talk about, and of course the historical context. The Supreme Court has struck down the Haredi exemption multiple times since 1998, citing equal protection principles. Now, this is the situation at the moment on the ground. We're looking at Israel's Supreme Court that has today ordered the government to draft ultra-Orthodox Jews into the military, delivering a blow to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that has the potential to unravel his ruling coalition, because two coalition partners, well, they support this particular conscription exemption. Joining us here on the newsroom is Lev Aran, Israeli columnist and journalist, joining us live from Israel. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Aran. First and foremost, let's get the ball rolling over here. What does this mean for Benjamin Netanyahu? The geopolitical scenario that's at play over here, 9-month-long war already. The judicial overhaul was something that completely divided the people of Israel as well. And now we're looking at this new, fresh ruling. Most Israelis have welcomed the step. The opposition has welcomed the step. But what does this mean for Netanyahu amid a war and his, coalition?
Thank you very much for inviting me. Good evening. How are you? If Netanyahu's government falls, it will not be because of the war in Gaza and not because of the war in Lebanon against Hezbollah. It will be because of domestic desi reasons in Israel. And this reason is the most serious one, because even among people who voted for Netanyahu, about 70 to 75% of the voters want everybody to go to the army. And all this idea that people are studying religious studies and therefore they will not die in the battlefield and the other Jews will die, it is highly unpopular, and Netanyahu knows this, and he knows that his own constituency wants everybody to be part of the military service.
Is this ruling sort of set in motion the downfall of Netanyahu, Mr. Aran?
It could be, because the question is not how many ultra-Orthodox will go to the army now, because even if they go to the army now, it will take at least 6 or 8 months for them to be fruitful in the battlefield. You cannot make a soldier in one day. It takes time. We all know it, because in Israel, girls, boys, everybody goes to the army. The question is different. Once the Supreme Court said that what Netanyahu does is illegal, it means that all these places will not be budgeted by Israel. They will not get money. And since they are banking on governmental money, they may collapse. Many religious schools, many yeshivas, as you said, may collapse because of this ruling. Once they collapse, Netanyahu may lose his, let's say, most loyal parties that were with him since 2009. For the last 15 years, they were his most loyal partners, and he knows that once they will lose money, and if losing the money will cause the closeness of the yeshivas, maybe this government will collapse.
All right, Mr. Aran, very quickly, one last question, very quickly. Tell me, how real and pragmatic is the problem of the IDF getting overstretched? They're needing more conscripts now, aren't they? How pragmatic is that problem?
No, there is no question about this. We have reserve soldiers who've made over 100, 150 days of service at the age of 38, 51, 48. We lost one soldier who was over 50. You don't lose a soldier over 50 who is not a high-rank officer if you don't need each and every soldier. So yes, we need each and every Jewish citizen of Israel to be part of the army. I think there is quite a consensus about it.
Well, the Judaism Torah party, Mr. Roth over there, we just heard him say that nothing much is going to change on the ground. It seems like, Mr. Iran, we'll have to wait and find out as to what is going to be the geopolitical scenario, what is going to be the cultural impact on ground now that ultra-Orthodox, the Haredi Jews, well, they've lost their conscription waiver. Many thanks for joining with us and helping us out with your insightful inputs, Mr. Iran. We'll have to wait and find out. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to shift into a quick commercial breather over here, but right on the other side, we're going to transport you to Kenya, where the parliament is being stormed over taxation protests, and we'll also tell you what it means for all the Indians that are living in Kenya as well. Do continue to stay on News9 Live.
Helps beat sensitivity fast. Sensodyne Rapid Relief.
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार विमल बोलो जुबान केसरी.
This is News 9 Live, India's only digital exclusive live stream. For the early adopters, bringing you the news 24/7. For the smart audiences on the smartest TVs. News 9 Live. Stream now on your smart TVs.
How do you fulfill that promise? Because ultimately expectations have to be met. If you look at the political landscape, is it really changing for women? And what is the inability of the forces that dead bodies surface but not the living people?
When we talk about India, unfortunately the country has the highest burden of road crash fatalities.
तो लगभग 76% लोग पेडेस्ट्रियंस और टू व्हीलर वाले हैं जिनकी डेथ हुई है. While the highways are getting better in India, the local roads, the city roads, the town roads, these need to be improved.
This and more. Streaming on News 9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Helps beat sensitivity fast. Sensodyne Rapid Relief.
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार विमल बोलो जुबान केसरी.
Welcome back. You're watching News 9 Live. Let's shift our focus to what's happening in Kenya. There's protests over the new taxation regime that has been put up. People have gone onto the streets, vandalism, arson, and now storming of the parliament building. And what's worse is that 10 people have been shot down. Take a look at this. In the Kenyan capital of Nairobi, protesters clashed with police today, demanding the resignation of President William Ruto over proposed tax hikes. The demonstrations, which began peacefully, turned chaotic as police opened fire on protesters outside Kenya's parliament. Police started shooting tear gas and water cannon, which failed to disperse a crowd of thousands who had overwhelmed officers. Flames could be seen coming from inside the building. A paramedic said that at least 10 people had been killed, and a Reuters journalist outside the parliament counted the bodies of at least 5 protesters. The protesters accused President Ruto of betrayal. pointing out that he won the presidency in 2022 by promising to champion the cause of the working poor. But now people are having to protest against a fresh taxation system. Kenyan police has started to begin to arrive in the Haitian capital as security missions kick off. And of course, the Kenyan police ended up firing upon a medical tent during the protest is what we're picking up as well. Now, various videos showed medical workers holding up their hands as the police approached. Nobody, it seems, is safe at this point in time. They are vehemently opposed to the government's new finance bill, which aims to raise taxes to alleviate the nation's debt burden. Despite the heavy-handed police response, the demonstrators remained resolute. They taunted officers, held up signs demanding, quote-unquote, reject the finance bill, and warned William Ruto's administration of their determination to force him from power. Amid the turmoil, ambulances struggled through the clouds of tear gas, highlighting the intensity of the unrest.
Then why are you doing this?
That's the situation on the ground in Nairobi, ladies and gentlemen. We're also learning about unrest in the Haitian part as well. But let's take a closer look at why Kenyans are protesting against a finance bill. A finance bill is typically presented to the parliament before the start of the financial year, outlining the government's fiscal plans. In the 2024-2025 bill, the Kenyan government aims to raise $2.7 billion in additional taxes to reduce the budget deficit and state borrowing. Kenya's public debt stands at 68% of GDP, exceeding the 55% recommended by the World Bank and the IMF. Facing acute liquidity challenges, Kenya has turned to the International Monetary Fund, which has urged the government to meet revenue targets to secure more funding. Protesters want the government to abandon the planned taxation hikes, arguing they will stifle the economy and increase the cost of living for Kenyans that are already struggling to make their ends meet. What are the proposed measures sparking these protests now, you may ask? The proposed measures include new levies on basic commodities like bread, vegetable oil and sugar, and a new motor vehicle circulation tax of 2.5% of a car's value to be paid annually. An eco-levy on most manufactured goods, including sanitary towels and diapers, is also proposed. Additionally, the bill suggests increasing existing taxes on financial transactions. The government argues these measures are necessary to fund development programs and reduce public debt. And just last week, the government softened its stance slightly, with President Ruto endorsing recommendations to scrap some of the new levies, including those on car ownership, bread, and the eco-levy on locally manufactured goods. However, the Finance Ministry has said such concessions would create a $1.56 billion hole in the 2024-2025 budget, necessitating spending cuts. President William Ruto has acknowledged the youth-led protests and pledged to hold dialogues to address their concerns. Although it's unclear when this will happen and will it be a little too late by then because of what we're looking happening on the streets of Nairobi on your screens. It remains uncertain whether the protests will intensify if Parliament passes the bill. The social media-driven protests lack clear leadership structures, but many young people have pledged to continue demonstrating. Some protesters have cited the arrest of at least 2 activists since Ruto's offer to talks on Sunday as evidence that the government lacks the goodwill that it's trying to show. The government maintains that withdrawing some tax proposals shows its willingness to compromise. But at the same time, even as all of this is happening and we try to understand what's going to happen, let's take a look at the relationship between India and Kenya. If you have your loved ones or relatives in Kenya, well, this should matter to you. Now, Kenya has the second largest number of Indians in Africa after South Africa, telling us about the bonhomie between these two nations. Nearly 1.6 lakh NRIs, people of Indian origin and overseas Indians, live in Kenya. A breakup would be 20,000, 60,000 and 80,000. And of course, India is one of the biggest sources of inbound tourists to India. At the same time, India is the second largest investor in Kenya. About 60 FDI projects are successful in Kenya. Over 60 major Indian companies have also invested in various sectors across Kenya. About 3,500 Kenyan students currently study in India across our nation. Just a little tidbit about what's happening on the India-Kenya front, beg your pardon. But protesters continue to march on the streets of Nairobi. The parliament is being stormed. Visuals of fire from inside the parliament, and the police have opened fire on the protesters. About 10 people that have been killed. That number could very well be up as well. Well, we'll slip into a quick commercial break at this point in time. Lots more coming right on the other side. Keep watching News 9 Live.
Helps beat sensitivity fast. Sensodyne Rapid Relief.
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार विमल बोलो जुबान केसरी.
This is News 9 Live, India's only digital exclusive live stream. For the early adopters, bringing you the news 24/7. For the smart audiences on the smartest TVs. News 9 Live. Stream now on your smart TVs.
Why is the state not looking at putting an embargo on that?
As a Telangana person,
the confidence is certainly back in the market.
Do tighten your seat belt so that you can withstand volatility.
I have one humble request to all the viewers of News 9 is that please don't go, there will be a lot of choppiness, there will be a lot of volatility. Look at long term, don't look at short term. Buy quality, don't buy quantity, and wish you all the very best.
हमारा टाइम आ गया है और रहेगा.
This and more. Streaming on News 9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Welcome back. In a tragic escalation of violence, Israeli airstrikes in Gaza City early on Tuesday have resulted in the deaths of at least 24 Palestinians. Health officials and medics report that among the deceased is the sister of Ismail Haniyeh, the chief of the militant Islamist group Hamas. Israeli tanks also advanced further into the western areas of Rafah in the south of the enclave, demolishing homes as they moved forward, razing them to the ground, according to the local residents. Two of the Israeli airstrikes targeted schools in Gaza City, killing at least 14 people. Another strike on a house in the Shati refugee camp claimed the lives of 19 more. The targeted house belonged to the extended family of the Hamas political chief Haniyeh, resulting in the death of one of his sisters and several other relatives. Now, Ismail Haniyeh, who operates from Qatar, has seen a devastating loss of family members since the conflict escalated on the 7th of October, including 3 of his sons. The Israeli military has stated that their operations were aimed at militants in Gaza City involved in planning attacks on Israel. These militants were allegedly part of those holding hostages and participated in Hamas's cross-border attack on the 7th of October last year. The Israeli Air Force reported hitting structures used by Hamas terrorists in the northern Gaza Strip, specifically in Shati and Daraj Tufa. They claim these sites, including schools, were used by Hamas as shields for their activities. Hamas, however, denies these allegations, asserting that they do not use civilian facilities like schools and hospitals for military purposes. They have described the attacks on the schools and house in Shati camp as massacres and have placed responsibility on the US administration, accusing them of providing political and military might and support to Israel. In related developments, the armed wings of Hamas and the allied Islamic Jihad groups reported that their fighters fired mortar bombs overnight against Israeli forces in Rafah. Meanwhile, in Khan Yunis, Israeli tank shelling has wounded several people at a tent camp, according to the medics. The situation in Gaza remains dire as the conflict continues to claim lives and displace people. Now take a look at this. Israel is going to spend the coming weeks trying to resolve the conflict with Lebanon's Iran-backed group Hezbollah and would prefer a diplomatic solution at that, Israel's National Security Advisor confirmed today. National Security Advisor Zachi Hanegbi said Israel had been discussing with the US officials the possibility that an expected end of intense Israeli military operations in Gaza would allow an arrangement to be reached with Hezbollah. Iran-backed Hezbollah began attacking Israel from the north shortly after Palestinian Islamist group Hamas's October 7th assault on southern Israel, which sparked the war in Gaza. Shelling on Israel's northern border has led to the evacuation of tens of thousands of people from areas on both sides of the frontier and has escalated in recent weeks, leading to fears of an all-out conflict. Hanegbi also said Israel was discussing with Washington a possible joint effort by the United States, European and some Arab countries to find a replacement for Hamas rule in the Gaza Strip. Well, it's time for us to slip into a quick commercial break here. Top developments will continue on the other side. We've been talking about United States, and mind you, Trump versus Biden debate is right around the corner. Why should you be interested? Well, wait and find out.
For the very first time in our investigation, we unmasked the killer of Ravindra Matre.
In 5G, we have to stand with the world, and in 6G, we have to lead the world.
Winning a Grammy was an absolutely surreal experience.
There are beautiful golf courses, there are well-played golf courses, there are great greens. But I think we are a combination of everything.
Now, because of the nature-friendly atmosphere here, plenty of water, you can hear the birds. So lots and lots of birds live on this golf course.
Every corner you have a different vista. You have the beautiful Sayadri range behind you, and it's just endless. It keeps going on and on and on and on. So I think no matter what floor you are, you're always slapped in the face by this most amazing view that takes your breath away for a second.
This and more. Streaming on News 9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
20,000 people dead and counting. What's happening in the United States of America is unprecedented. You will have to pay for this.
The confidence is certainly back in the market.
Do tighten your seat belt so that you can withstand volatility.
I have one humble request to all the viewers of News 9 is that please don't go, there will be a lot of choppiness, there will be a lot of volatility. Look at long term, don't look at short term. Buy quality, don't buy quantity, and wish you all the very best.
हमारा टाइम आ गया है और रहेगा.
This and more. Streaming on News 9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
जानना है तो देखिए, समझना है तो सुनिए, सीखना है तो पूछिए, और कमाना है तो खरीदिए। जानकारी, सलाह और निवेश सब एक ही सुपर ऐप पर। पैसे का सवाल है तो जवाब है मनी 9। आजादी पैसे की, अभी डाउनलोड करें।
Welcome back. You're watching News 9 Live. Maintaining our focus on the West Asian conflict, because U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Monday emphasized to Israel Defense Minister Yoav Gallant the importance of Israel swiftly developing a robust and realistic plan for the governance of Gaza for when the war is finally over, according to the United States' department.
Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant arrived at the U.S. State Department for talks with top American diplomat Antony Blinken on Monday. The visit comes amid U.S. calls for a ceasefire in Gaza and for the development of a realistic post-war plan, according to State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller.
We have been quite consistent that for there to be an enduring defeat of Hamas, there needs to be a plan for what replaces them. And what replaces them needs to be Palestinian-led governance. It needs to be realistic security plans. It needs to be realistic reconstruction plans. And that's what we continue to work towards with our Arab partners in the region, and as we continue to push the government of Israel to properly consider.
Washington has warned Israel that the absence of such a plan could trigger lawlessness and chaos, as well as a comeback by Hamas in the enclave. After the meeting, Gallant didn't address this point with reporters, but did say the alliance with the United States is extremely important to the future of Israel. He also met with advisors to President Joe Biden, as well as CIA Director Bill Burns Monday, in discussions he called critical as Israel deals with Gaza and escalating hostilities on Israel's border with Lebanon, where exchanges of fire with Hezbollah have stoked fears of wider conflict. He's set to meet with Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on Tuesday.
Evacuations from Gaza since the closure of the Rafah crossing in early May. Watch how Gazans, especially the children, are awaiting medical treatment.
Nada Al-Kanu sits with her 2 young children in Han Yunis's Nasser Hospital in the southern part of the Gaza Strip on Monday. Her son Amjad is suffering from malnutrition, and Ahmed has testicular cancer. Originally from the north, Al-Kanu says she has been trying to facilitate medical evacuation for some time now, and recently received a call telling her a transfer would go ahead. I didn't believe it, she says about the call. I said, this is impossible. The Rafah crossing is closed and under siege. How can we get out? The World Health Organization has been unable to carry out medical evacuations from Gaza since the closure of the Rafah crossing in early May. Through coordination with the WHO, the 2 boys are to be transferred out of Gaza for medical treatment through the Kerem Shalom crossing. Dr. Ahmad Al-Farah told Reuters that nearly 50,000 patients were in need of transfer.
Some of them malignant diseases, cancer, some of them metabolic diseases, some of them immune deficiency diseases, and of course some of them injured by the explosive injury that they got in the war.
Another Palestinian mother, Samira, has been told her daughter Jory will also be transferred out. Jory had to stop chemotherapy when the war began, and now is one of many thousands who suffer from malnutrition.
It's the most difficult of situations to not be able to provide the necessary nutrition for a child. There's no food for her body, only canned food. There's no fruit to give her or vegetables to get for her, and if there is, it's all unimaginably expensive. So thank God that she will be able to travel to get medical treatment and eat more food than we have here.
A group of UN-led agencies estimates that around 7% of Gazan children may be acutely malnourished, compared with 0.8% before the Israel-Hamas conflict began on October 7th. Israel's offensive has killed more than 37,400 people in the Hamas-ruled Palestinian territory, according to health authorities there. It launched its assault after Hamas fighters stormed across the border into southern Israel on October 7th, killing around 1,200 people and taking more than 250 people hostage, according to Israeli tallies.
Moving on to another important global story that people are tracking, and it's, making headlines and turning heads everywhere. Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, is set to plead guilty this week to violating US espionage laws, marking a crucial turn in his own legal journey. Now, the plea deal marks the end of his imprisonment in Britain and will facilitate his return to Australia, resolving a lengthy legal battle. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, he said that he wanted Assange to be brought back home.
I've been very clear as both the Labor leader in opposition but also as Prime Minister that regardless of the views that people have about Mr Assange's activities, the case has dragged on for too long. There's nothing to be gained by his continued incarceration, and we want him brought home to Australia. And we have engaged and advocated Australia's interests using all appropriate channels to support a positive outcome, and I've done that since very early on in my Prime Ministership. I will have more to say when these legal proceedings have concluded, which I hope will be very soon, and I will report as appropriate at that time.
Now, Assange, who's currently 52 years old, has agreed to admit to a single charge of conspiring to obtain and disclose classified US national defense documents, as confirmed by filings from the US District Court for the Northern Mariana Islands. A sentencing hearing is scheduled for Wednesday at 9 a.m. local time on Saipan, where Assange is expected to receive a sentence of 62 months, accounting for the time served. Now, Assange has been imprisoned for about 1,901 days. That makes up more than his sentence, and he will soon walk a free man. On Monday, Assange departed from Belmarsh prison in the United Kingdom after being granted bail by the UK High Court, boarding a flight later that day, according to a statement by WikiLeaks on social media platform X. The private jet, believed to be carrying the WikiLeaks' founder, landed on the tarmac at Don Muang International Airport in Bangkok, Thailand. Assange's wife, Stella, and WikiLeaks' editor, Kristin, thanked supporters outside the London prison where Assange was held. Stella Assange said that she hasn't received or revealed the news to her children yet, but told them that there's a big surprise waiting for them in Australia.
It's exactly 12 years today since Julian went into the Embassy of Ecuador, which granted him political asylum, protection from persecution, from torture, from a life imprisonment. And 12 years on, I'm visiting Julian in a high security prison. But this period of our lives, I'm confident now, has come to an end. And I think that by this time next week, Julian will be free. Things are moving very quickly, and it's very difficult for us to plan or even play out the next few hours and days. But if everything goes well, Julian will be on a plane on the way to freedom. Throughout the years of Julian's imprisonment and persecution, an incredible movement has been formed. A movement of people from all walks of life, from around the world, who support not just Julian and not just us and our family, but what Julian stands for, truth and justice. We still need your help. What starts now with Julian's freedom is a new chapter. This new chapter in Julian and our lives, we ask for your support as well.
I just came out of Belmarsh prison in what I hope is my last visit to see Julian here in this prison where he spent 5 years, 2 months and 2 weeks. And if you're seeing this, it means he is out. The cost to Julian, of course, has been to be deprived of freedom for all these years in the battle for journalistic freedom, freedom to publish, foundation of democracy. I can say in earnest that without your support, this would have never materialized. This important day of joy, the day of Julian's freedom.
Now, back in 2010, WikiLeaks made headlines by publishing classified US military documents and diplomatic cables, the largest security breach in US military history. During the Trump administration, Assange was indicted for releasing classified US documents obtained from Chelsea Manning, a former US military intelligence analyst prosecuted under the Espionage Act. The charges against Assange have sparked international outcry from supporters who argue that prosecuting him as a publisher sets a dangerous precedent. Press freedom advocates warn that Assange's case threatens freedom of speech. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's spokesperson criticized the prolonged case, noting no benefit from Assange's continued incarceration. Assange's legal woes began with his 2010 arrest in Britain under a European arrest warrant related to Swedish allegations of sexual misconduct, which were later dropped. Moving on, shifting our focus to South Korea, where the South Korean battery firm has apologized after the deadly factory fire that killed 23 of its workers. The manufacturer said it had complied with all required safety precautions and training and vowed to sincerely work on the investigation. The fire, which began at a factory with 35,000 lithium batteries, produced thick smoke that spread quickly, and the workers inside the second floor location likely lost consciousness and succumbed within seconds.
We apologise for the loss of many lives regarding the fire accident at the Aricel plant on June 24th. The company will do its best to deal with this situation and will take on a firm responsibility. In addition, we will sincerely work on the investigation of the relevant authorities and will make every effort to follow up on the exact cause of the accident and prevent recurrence. There are 7 male workers, 15 female workers, and 1 unidentified worker are missing. Among them, there are 20 workers with foreign nationalities, 2 South Koreans and 1 unidentified. Rescue workers entered the building and began the search operation. Among the missing workers, there are Chinese nationals and other foreign nationals. Like I said before, about 20 workers are foreign nationals, but the list of them was burned, so it will take more time to check their exact nationalities.
Shifting our focus here, ladies and gentlemen, the International Criminal Court, the ICC, has issued arrest warrants for Sergei Shoigu, former Russian defense minister, and General Valery Gerasimov for alleged crimes during Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This brings the total number of arrest warrants against senior Russian officials to 8 now, including President Vladimir Putin, who faces charges over the deportation of Ukrainian children to Russia. The ICC accuses Shoigu and Gerasimov of war crimes and crimes against humanity, specifically for directing attacks on civilians and civilian infrastructure in Ukraine. Judges found reasonable grounds to believe the 2 were responsible for missile strikes on Ukrainian electric infrastructure from October 2022 to March 2023. Now, while Kyiv welcomed the court's decision, Moscow dismissed it as legally meaningless, arguing that Russia is not a member of the ICC and thus not subject to its jurisdiction. Despite these warrants, the ICC faces challenges in enforcing them as it relies on member states for arrests, and Russia has a policy of not extraditing its nationals. The court's decision comes amid scrutiny, especially after ICC prosecutor Karim Khan sought arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other officials, prompting mixed reactions from ICC member states and non-members like the United States. Moving on, the stage is set, ladies and gentlemen, for the much-awaited first presidential debate between none other than the current US President Joe Biden, a Democrat, and his predecessor, the Republican rival, Donald Trump, all about to take place on the 28th of June early morning for us Indians back here. Now, this will be the first debate between the arch rivals ahead of the presidential elections that are scheduled to be held on the 5th of November. The 90-minute CNN debate will see some tough questions being thrown at the 2 oldest candidates ever to run for US president. During the debate, there will be strict speaking limits, a ban on notes, and no audience to provide reactions. With only 2 debates this cycle, It is expected to be a high-stakes clash that's going to take place on Thursday. The debate comes in the wake of a criminal trial against Donald Trump, besides contentious issues like abortion and immigration. Here's what to watch for in Thursday's Biden-Trump presidential debate. The fitness question, of course. President Joe Biden is 81 years old, while his rival, former President Donald Trump, is 78. Trump claims Biden is physically and mentally unfit for office, while Biden has called his predecessor unhinged and a danger to democratic norm. Then comes the aspect of the temperament test. Both candidates are known for their tempers and impatience. Of course, the issue of disinformation is also going to be brought about. Trump is notorious for injecting falsehoods and exaggerated boasts into his remarks. Current President Joe Biden, too, has been known to tell a few tall tales on the stump. Meanwhile, the narrative trap is going to be looked at very closely, because if Biden talks of Trump's conviction, this could give a signal that Trump is a victim of political persecution. And because there's going to be no audience feedback in a sharp departure from previous presidential debates, there will be no studio audience to pick up on or cling on reactions coming from the audience as to what's working out for either of them and what is not. All eyes on 27th June, ladies and gentlemen. Donald Trump and Joe Biden face to face in a heated debate. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris used the second anniversary of the Supreme Court's decision overturning abortion rights to spotlight Donald Trump's role in the ruling, as Democrats zero in on the issue ahead of the November election.
2 years ago today, the highest court in our land took a constitutional right that had been recognized from the people of America, from the women of America. And thereafter, in state after state, laws have been proposed and passed that criminalize healthcare providers. You know, in Texas, they provide prison for life. And so let's understand the connection between this issue and elections, because Joe Biden has been very clear. When Congress puts back in place the protections of Roe versus Wade, he will sign it into law. Amen. You know, the people who were the leaders of this movement that got Roe to be the law of the land for 50 years, they have passed the baton to us. And the question is now, while we are carrying the baton, what are we doing with it? And I know we are taking our role and responsibility seriously. There are going to be many times in your life where you're going to be told that can't be done. It's never been done before. It's not time. They're not ready for it. And then this is the one I love. It's going to be a lot of hard work. Don't you listen. I eat no for breakfast.
Well, Vice President Kamala Harris says she eats a no for breakfast, speaking at a reproductive freedom event. And it's important because elections are right around the corner. You must talk about demographics as well. And a recent survey by Prudential Financial reveals a potential crisis for female retirees in the United States. Women have saved just 1/3 of the amount of retirement savings as men, setting up a potential crisis for female retirees.
Women in the U.S. have just 1/3 of the amount of retirement savings as men, setting up a potential crisis for female retirees. That's according to a survey released Monday by Prudential Financial. Men had saved a median of $157,000 for retirement, while women had only put aside $50,000, according to the results. Prudential cited inflation, housing prices, and changes in tax policies as being particularly challenging for women, calling their financial futures, quote, especially precarious. Women were also 3 times more likely than men to be focused on providing for their families and children than saving. More than 900 adults aged 55 to 75 were polled for the survey. 46% of the men said they were looking forward to retirement, compared with only 27% of women polled. The survey also showed that 55-year-old Americans are financially unprepared for retirement. The median savings for a person that age was just under $48,000, compared with the more than $446,000 recommended by Prudential.
And like we promised, we've spoken about pretty much everything that's turning the head across the globe. And before we wrap this segment up, let's also throw light on the snap polls that are going to take place in France as well. And in a mixed suburb of Paris with lower voter turnout, the left-wing candidate, Adel Amara, is going door to door to encourage people to come out and vote. He's worried about the impact on minority communities if Marine Le Pen's far-right party wins the upcoming election. The race here could be crucial for the entire country. Take a look.
In the racially mixed Paris suburb of Le Pays-Trevis, left-wing parliamentary candidate Adel Amara is going door to door, hoping to persuade people to vote and turn the constituency leftward. Amara, who is of Algerian heritage, says he worries for France's minority communities if Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally, or RN, wins the upcoming election. The RN is currently leading in opinion polls, and in European Parliament elections last month came out on top in the area with 25% of the vote, lower than its national score, but high for the Paris region. Amara says the Popular Front, a leftist alliance, can lead here if they mobilize voters who stayed home in the past.
It may seem crazy, but I think we can get this victory.
In the small working-class estate where Amara is door-knocking, only 497 people, or 43% of eligible voters, cast a ballot in 2022. Abstention is high in these areas because of distrust in the political class, Amara says.
What causes and what fuels abstentionism, in my opinion, is really the feeling people have of voting for a project and ending up with the opposite project.
He references the last election where he says people voted for French President Emmanuel Macron to block the far right, only for, quote, Macron to prop the far right up. Members of minority communities interviewed by Reuters say they worry a victory for the RN could lead to a rise in racism. The RN denies it's racist, but proposes policies that it says prioritize French nationals. It wants to limit access to health and welfare benefits for foreigners, to restrict citizenship, and to ban the wearing of the hijab by women in public. Social worker Celia Angela says she will cast a ballot in a parliamentary election for the first time over worries about the far right. She says, I have daughters who are small, and I tell myself that I don't want to leave them in a world where they are going to be stigmatized, to be discriminated against. France's national election takes place over 2 rounds, on June 30th and July 7th.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Top Global Stories. Many thanks for watching. Lots more coming right on the other side.
The confidence is certainly back in the market.
Do tighten your seat belt so that you can withstand volatility.
I have one humble request to all the viewers of News 9 is that please don't go, there will be a lot of choppiness, there will be a lot of volatility. Look at long term, don't look at short term. Buy quality, don't buy quantity, and wish you all the very best.
हमारा टाइम आ गया है और रहेगा.
This and more. Streaming on News 9 plus News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
How do you fulfill that promise? Because ultimately expectations have to be met. If you look at the political landscape, is it really changing for women? And what is the inability of the forces that dead bodies surface but not the living people?
When we talk about India, unfortunately the country has the highest burden of road crash fatalities.
तो लगभग 76% लोग pedestrians और two-wheeler वाले हैं जिनकी death हुई है. While the highways are getting better in India, the local roads, the city roads, the town roads, these need to be improved.
This and more. Streaming on News 9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
A second ship sunk in the Red Sea on the 19th of June after Yemen's Houthi rebels attacked the vessels and killed one mariner on board. The Iran